In 2003, a man walked into a bank with an explosive device locked around his neck. Let's talk about that. What you're about to hear is based on a truly horrific day. When I first heard about it, I could hardly believe it was real. It seemed much more like a story born out of the twisted machinations of some grungy film studio. So I did some research and came across this article online. I'll link to the full article in the description box down below, which I recommend you check out later. The story is a long and extremely wild ride. It takes place over several years and has some truly mind-boggling twists and turns. As you listen, remember that whatever theories you develop throughout the story, you'll probably never guess how it actually turns out in the end. Remember to like and subscribe and turn on those notifications just to make sure you catch that random video that I do every now and then. So, without further ado, let's get into the story here. It was about 2:28 p.m., August 28th, 2003. A 46-year-old pizza delivery man named Brian Wells walked into a bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. An unusual-looking bulge protruded from underneath the collar of his shirt. He walked up to the teller and passed them a bag with a note. "Gather employees with access codes to the vault and work fast to fill the bag with $250,000, it said. You have 15 minutes. He lifted his shirt to reveal a cube-shaped device hanging from a metal collar attached around his neck. The teller told Wells that there was no way to get into the vault. They did the best they could at the moment, filling a bag with $8,700 in cash and handed it to the man. Wells walked out, sucking on a dum-dum lollipop he grabbed from the counter, hopped into his car, and drove off. About 15 minutes later, Pennsylvania state troopers spotted Wells standing outside his Geo Metro in a parking lot not far away from the bank, where the robbery had been reported. They quickly surrounded him, took him down to the pavement, and cuffed his hands behind his back. Wells pleaded with the troopers. He explained that he was out on a delivery when he was accosted by a group of black men. He said the men held him at gunpoint while they chained a bomb around his neck. He also said that they were the ones who forced him to rob the bank. "It's gonna go off," he told them in desperation. "I'm not lying." The officers took Brian at his word and called in a bomb squad. They took positions behind their cars, guns drawn as they awaited response. Soon, TV camera crews began to arrive. For about 25 minutes, Wells sat anxiously on the pavement. Suddenly, the device started to emit an accelerating beeping noise. Wells shifted nervously. The beeping stopped, and the device detonated, blasting him violently onto his back. When the dust cleared, Brian could be seen with a 5-inch gash in his chest. At approximately 3:18 p.m., Brian Wells passed away on the parking lot pavement. The bomb squad arrived 3 minutes later. As you can see, this story doesn't exactly have a happy ending. The unfortunate victim did not survive. Oddly enough, though, the tale only gets stranger from here. The police began sorting through a mountain of physical evidence. They analyzed the explosive device that was fastened to Brian's neck and found it to be a marvel of design. The device was of reinforced metal construction with multiple keyholes and locking mechanisms. The box attached to the collar contained the remains of 2 homemade explosives. Investigators could tell that whoever built the rig had used professional tools. It was also full of misdirection, fake wires to thwart any attempts to disarm it. The contraption was a puzzle within a puzzle. Inside Wells's car, police found a series of notes addressed to the hostage. The notes instructed him to rob the bank of $250,000 before following a series of scavenger hunt-style instructions to find the various keys and combinations hidden throughout the city. The unknown men behind the cowardly, murderous attack assured Brian that the only way to survive was to follow the instructions to a T. "This powerful, booby-trapped bomb can be removed only by following our instructions. Act now, think later, or you will die." In the hours after Wells's tragic death, the police followed the clues in an effort to trace the killers. The first instruction went as follows. Exit the bank with the money and go to the restaurant down the block. Get out of the car and go to the small sign reading drive-through open 24 hours. In the flower bed, by the sign, there's a rock with a note taped onto the bottom. It has your next instructions. That was the spot where Wells was apprehended. He was trying to follow the rules, trying to survive. He successfully retrieved a 2-page note from the flower bed, which would have directed him to a wooded area several miles away, where a container with orange tape would hold the next set of instructions. The police picked up where Brian left off and found the container mentioned in the notes. Inside, they found a note sending them 2 miles south to a small road sign where the next clue would be waiting in a jar in the woods nearby. They found the jar, but it was empty. It seemed like whoever designed this sadistic set of trials had called it off. They may have even been watching the police every step of the way. Having hit a dead end, the police asked themselves a series of questions. Why a scavenger hunt? Why send a hostage all over Erie in broad daylight? Why leave the clues in public where they might be found by others? And why did they choose Wells? People across the world became fascinated by the pursuit of this mysterious criminal who came to be known as the collar bomber. The FBI began tracking the case. As they often do, they went back to square one, the pizza restaurant where Wells was working on the day of the robbery. An order came in for 2 small pies to be delivered to a location on the outskirts of the city. Wells was a model employee and agreed to deliver the order even though he was at the end of his shift. He had to take a dirt road to get to the location. They knew he was likely a bit perplexed when he saw it was a TV transmission tower in a heavily wooded area. The feds combed the location for any clues of people going in or out besides Wells himself, but they found no traces of tire tracks or anything anywhere around the building. The only shoe prints they found were consistent with the footwear Wells was wearing on that fateful day. Reporters went to a home on the other side of the woods near the TV tower. They realized that the home's backyard reached almost all the way to the land the tower was on. An unmarried 59-year-old handyman by the name of Bill lived there, seemingly oblivious to the investigation going on in his backyard. He took the reporters on a 15-minute tour around his yard before they felt they'd seen enough and left. About a month later, Bill called 911 with a haunting message. He gave the operator his address. "In the garage. There is a frozen body," he said. "It's in the freezer." When police arrived at the house, they found the body of an adult male in the chest freezer. Bill was immediately taken into custody. He explained that he had nothing to do with the man's death, claiming that he had simply agreed to help out an ex-girlfriend who had shot the man in a dispute over money. The man had been shot in the back with a shotgun, which Bill also melted down, scattering the pieces around Erie County. He said he called the police because he couldn't bring himself to grind the body up, but he was afraid of what his ex-girlfriend might do to him if he couldn't go through with it. He assured authorities that the incidents had nothing to do with the Wells case. The body in the freezer was identified as a man by the name of Jim. The next day, Bill's ex-girlfriend Marge was arrested for Jim's murder. And this is where things get even more bizarre. So Marge, the ex-girlfriend, was actually notorious for her long line of dead lovers. She claimed to have shot another boyfriend 6 times in self-defense. A few years after that, her husband died of a cerebral hemorrhage, allegedly accidental, but there were some lingering questions there as well. She was described as a possible schizophrenic with rapid-fire speech patterns and severe narcissistic tendencies. When she was interviewed, she claimed that unlike what Bill told authorities, Jim's murder was very much connected to Brian's collar bomb incident. She agreed to tell everything she knew, in exchange for her being moved into a minimum security prison. When her conditions were met, she told authorities that Bill was actually the mastermind of the collar bomb plot. Shockingly, she said that even Brian himself, the victim of the exploding device, was in on the whole thing. It eventually came out that Jim, the man in the freezer, was actually shot because he was going to confess to the whole robbery scheme. I really wanted to say that Jim was trying to blow the lid off the whole robbery scheme, but it didn't seem appropriate at the time. Anyway, Marge claimed that Jim was the one who measured Brian's neck for the bomb. Later, the FBI received a tip that a TV repairman turned crack dealer by the name of Ken was yet another accomplice in the collar bomb caper. Ken was interviewed pretty easily because he was already serving time in jail. I promise you I am not making this up. Ken agreed to share his knowledge in exchange for a reduced sentence. According to Ken, Marge needed cash to pay him to kill her own father, so in fact, she orchestrated the collar bomb plot. When the authorities confronted Marge with that information, she became irate. She continued to provide information, but eventually asked for immunity if they wanted any more out of her, but by that time she had said too much already. Over the course of at least 1,000 interviews, it was discovered that Brian Wells agreed to the plot because he was told the bomb was fake, that the scavenger hunt was meant to be a ruse to throw off the police, or at least that's what he was told. The plan was so ingenious, he thought, that even if he was caught, he could point to the elaborate setup and get off on plausible deniability. It turned out that he was in debt due to an alleged affair with a female sex worker. He racked up a heavy debt because he paid the woman with crack he purchased from his pal Ken. Again, I am not making this up. In this baffling mess of an incident, Brian began as an inside man playing the part of a hostage, looking forward to a big payday with no real downsides. But when he realized the bomb was real, he tried to get away. His former friends and associates tackled him and locked the bomb around his neck, and the pieces were set in motion. In fact, after a thorough analysis of the explosive device, the FBI learned that absolutely any attempt to remove it would have caused it to detonate. Brian Wells was doomed the moment the device was armed. During the court proceedings discussing the bizarre series of events, Brian's family members couldn't believe that he would ever willingly take part in such a plot. Marge actually denied ever having met Brian at all during the court proceedings. The various investigations played out over the course of about 7 years. By the time all was said and done, everyone involved with the collar bomb plot was either dead or in prison. There has been doubt as far as whether Marge was actually capable of orchestrating such an elaborate plan. Some say whoever was truly behind the events might have actually been in it for just the spectacle, or for the satisfaction of crafting an insane puzzle for people to rack their minds over for so many years. One thing I haven't seen answered is exactly who had the means to craft the intricate and meticulously planned devices themselves. I can't imagine a bunch of crack dealers could have the expertise. There are theories that Bill, the handyman, may have been the one to design and build the device. He had the tools and possibly had the talent. He had died of lymphoma a few years after the incident. One retired FBI agent who took it upon himself to examine this case said, "He died with all the secrets. He died taking the answers with him. He gets the last laugh in that sense. He escaped punishment, escaped detection. He left us with these idiots and a bunch of questions." The fact is, no one knows. To be honest, I'm not quite sure what to believe. There's too much going on and too many unanswered questions and moving parts to form a solid opinion either way. But I want to know, who do you think it was? Do you believe Ken? Was it Marge the man-killer, Bill the handyman, or perhaps some shadowy figure that was never found? And to some, most terrifyingly of all, what if it was actually a bunch of black guys? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. The article I referenced is going to be linked down below. It was written back in 2010 by an individual named Rich Shapiro. Very interesting read. I highly recommend it. This version of the story that I'm telling you is quite a bit has been cut out of it for the sake of time. And there are way more crazy twists and turns in that article. So yeah, definitely check it out. This case is insane. I started writing it with deep sympathy for the victim, for Brian Wells, who died. But I had this strange feeling when he said a bunch of black guys connected a bomb to his neck to kick off the plot. Something just didn't seem right about it, and it made me look at Brian a bit sideways. I actually felt bad about it at the time. So, reading the story, it kind of took me on a roller coaster of feelings, from being heartbroken that such a thing could happen to a random person, to being straight up puzzled that anyone would agree to a plan like this, and then to suspecting one person and then transitioning to another. I was sad to find out that he was supposed to go home when that fateful order came in from the outskirts of town. And like I said, when he said a bunch of black guys did it, I just had a weird feeling. And now, in retrospect, having heard the whole story, it's even crazier to me that even after his friends betrayed him and held him down, strapping a bomb to his neck, he would still rather cast suspicion on the black community than admit that his friends were the ones who basically got him killed, or at least at the time put his life in severe danger. So I was trying to think of a moral that we could extract from this bizarre story. And this is the best I could do, what I came up with. Don't let people, even your most trusted friend or even your crack dealer, talk you into strapping a deadly device to your neck in a plot to get rich quick. And just as a side note, probably stay away from Erie, Pennsylvania unless you know what you're doing. What a ride. Make sure you leave your thoughts and theories in the comments down below. I'm really, really interested in hearing what you guys think. Who do you believe? If you've heard of an insane news story similar to this one, let me know, because it might be interesting to cover things like this in the future. This is my first time looking at an actual news story and talking about it in depth like this. And it was very interesting to me. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Don't forget, if you have a true story to share with me, or you know someone who does, you can email me at mr.xdreams54@gmail.com. And for those real dreamers out there, the OGs, the ride or dies, I'm trying to get this thing rolling on Reddit. It's a new subreddit that I created a while back called r/stories for Mr. X Dreams. If you post a true story on there, we'll be able to sort of interact as a community a little bit more. I thought of that recently, and I think I'd like to try it out. So if you've got something, you can email me as always if you don't feel like using Reddit. But if you do use Reddit, feel free to hit me up on there, and then that way the community can kind of discuss before it turns into a video. Oh yeah, by the way, the very first thing that had me puzzled about this story was the fact that Brian grabbed a lollipop on his way out of the bank. Didn't seem like something a man in that position would do. That was probably the first giveaway that there was something off about this whole thing. Forgot to put that in my notes earlier on. Thanks for listening, my friends. Hope to see you guys again soon. And if you listened all the way to the end, type the code word lollipop into your comment down below so I can see you. I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams. Love you guys. Later.